Elizabeth has a turning club challenge to make a shallow bowl for next month. If you've been watching us for any amount of time, you know we like to make things harder than absolutely necessary. This bowl will require some outboard turning. I initially tried bolting some angle iron between two roller stands, but that was not nearly as stable as I needed. Then I found Sam Angelo's outboard turning stand and decided to build on that idea. In front of you is a selection of pipe fittings that I used to make the outboard tool rest. Everything is 1 1/4 inch except for the reducer to 1 inch and above, which is 1 inch fittings. The first part I am assembling is the 1 inch subassembly, which consists of 2 outer threaded couplers screwed into both ends of an inner threaded coupler. The 1 inch subassembly gets attached to the 1 1/4 inch to 1 inch reducer. A short section attaches the reducer to the T-section, which will branch out for support from both buckets. All of these connections are wrenched as tight as I can get them, as it's not intended to be disassembled. 7-inch sections are attached to the T-section between the 90-degree elbow, which will give about 16 inches between the two vertical pieces. These elbows are the only pieces which are not wrenched as hard as possible, since I need to make sure the entire unit is vertical. The reason I chose a double support system was to be able to have as much weight in the system to dampen the vibration. The tool rest I based my design on was a single support system, which would have the advantage of ease of movement and less hardware. Couplers were added below the elbows so I'd be able to connect the longer legs of the tool rest. And here is the complete assembled upper tool rest assembly. The rocking indicates I did not get the elbows at exactly the same angle. It will be easier to adjust once the legs are on and I have better leverage. I had the hardware cut 2 36-inch sections, knowing they would be a bit long, but you'll see how I address that in a bit. These legs are screwed in and wrenched tight into the couplings below the elbows. I picked up this little vise I'm using off a local auction site for less than $10. It has been a huge help on this project. With the top and bottom legs attached to the tool rest, I can do fine adjustments to the legs to make sure the whole assembly is vertical. I could have run a dowel through the headstock to get the center height, but it seemed like I could get a better feel by turning the headstock around to be used. I imagine Elizabeth will probably be asking for my help when we try to set this up for her, since the headstock is probably beyond what she can lift, let alone the tool rest which I'm making. Once the headstock is turned around, I can lay out the buckets where they'll wind up during use. Now I'm setting up to determine how much height I need to remove from the legs. I'm adding all the vertical components to the setup, the buckets, assembly, and the tool rest. It is obvious I can take the protruding threaded coupler off the top. I throw on some safety glasses anytime there's a risk of metal chips. Then I use a reciprocating saw to cut off the protruding threads. Now I can set up to test the height again. With the tape I measure the distance, accounting to put the tool rest about a ½ inch below center at the lowest, and allowing the legs to sit about a ½ inch above the bottom of the bucket. I mark the leg with the distance to remove and use the reciprocating saw to remove the end, and perform the same steps on the second leg. I probably could have saved a couple bucks at the hardware if I had mentioned I didn't need the second ends threaded. Not a big deal. As far as waste goes, this project was pretty minor. Heck, I had to go back to the hardware to pick up 2 couplings I forgot to buy when buying the original pieces. Things are looking pretty good. I'm right where I wanted, which is kind of a new feeling. Remember I mentioned I wanted the pipe to be about a ½ inch from the bottom of the buckets? Now I need to make this assembly float. I use a nail and some of the bowstring, which is pretty strong. A little wrapping and fiddling, and it floats vertically. This will help like a third hand while adjusting things once the cement is poured. I pre-pour about 1/3 of my water into the first bucket. Then I pour all of the Quikrete cement into the bucket. In hindsight, it probably would have been a good idea to wear a dust mask while pouring the Quikrete. At least I remembered the gloves. Then I poured more water over the top of the cement, and rushed around the shop off camera looking for something to mix the cement. I can only pre-plan so much. This isn't like the cement mixture that comes out of a cement truck. It's much drier overall. After getting the whole mixture somewhat moist, I packed it down by hand for a little bit. Then I did up the second bucket. To add some more weight, I poured some more water in and added half a second bag to each bucket. I did some more shaking of the buckets to help things settle and poured some more water over the tops. I poured a bit more water than absolutely necessary, but I wanted a thinner layer along the surface. Then I used a spatula as a float to smooth out the surface of the cement. Who says a man can't like pretty things? Granted, most folks probably wouldn't find a smooth cement surface very pretty. On to the last part, drilling and tapping threads to lock the tool rest where it mounts. When drilling out the hole, I use a little light machine oil to keep things cool and running smoothly. The top inner coupler you can see here was used to increase the wall diameter to get a decent set of threads for the eye bolt to hold the tool rest. I wipe away the metal shavings so they do not gum up the tap as it goes through. I use the hammer feature of the drill with a low clutch value to slowly cut the threads, and I back out regularly to clean out the cutters. Once I go all the way through, I know I have a nice set of clean threads. The last part is to screw in the eye bolt and test with the tool rest in place. Now to wait for the cement to cure and take this baby for a ride. I've screwed a faceplate onto this board which is too large to fit over the bed as an example. Then I moved the tool rest up to the material. I got lucky that the handles are comfortably angled, but you should do this intentionally. Then I adjusted the tool rest itself for proper alignment and making sure it spins freely. And here is my remote kill switch, no video due to my frustration while making this sucker. So now I have to reach around to the controls, staying out of the way of the spinning wood. Now here are some action shots while using the outboard tool rest. You can see it's very stable with very little vibration, and it absorbs even the chunk of the outer part of the board. So special thanks to Sam Angelo, aka Wyoming Woodturner, for the basic design. Go check him out to see some amazing wood turning. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.